welcome. I don't know what's going on here. What's wrong with the camera? There we go. Should be good. There we go. Welcome everyone to the Best Damn Podcast. I am your host, John Keene. As always, I would like to thank you guys for joining me. Please check us out. Instagram, Facebook, Best Damn Podcast, Twitter or X, The Real Best Damn. You can also follow our backup channel here on YouTube. It's Best Damn Podcast 2, so it's youtube.com/Best Damn Podcast, and the main here is Best Damn Podcast Official. What else, guys? Yeah, and if you want to check out all of our social medias and stuff, check the links. They're in the description box. The donation links, how to book a personal tarot reading, all that stuff should be in the chat as well as in the description as well. I'm coming to you guys not live tonight. I had this video set up for a while. Actually, I did. But this one's confirming reality. We're going to talk a little bit about the law of attraction tonight. We're going to talk about a lot of things when it comes to manifestation. So just kind of buckle up. It should be a pretty good one. But yeah, so hopefully if you guys are watching this, make sure to hit the thumbs up if you're in the chat. Comment. I am watching the chat tonight. And, share this. Share the link. Share the video. Help me to get it out there. That's how new people find me. That's how the community grows. All of that shit. So if you guys like the private content, the more raw, conspiracy-minded, uncensored shit, then Patreon would be the best route to go if you want to check that out. So yeah. Now, and I will say this too, I feel like there's a major lull every time, election season kind of slows down, especially in the news cycle. I've seen so much shit about, how Trump's not even, been inaugurated yet and put back into office technically, but, at the same time, you already see all of the shit coming out about how much more is being done and how much greater he is than, the last regime that was in there. And it kind of brings me to a point here, and this is why it's so important to really kind of take every thought captive, because what we believe becomes our reality, right? Whenever it comes to manifestation, and I'm terrible for the shit, and I've been I'm a Virgo, so I'm heavily analytical, and I can be overly critical and judgmental, and you could ask my girlfriend that, she definitely fucking agree with that. At times, and because of that, it can, sometimes it forces me to adopt more of a pessimistic attitude. Nice to see you, Rhonda. More of a pessimistic attitude, and I've noticed in my life, and many others, when we're expecting bad is what returns to us, right? When we're expecting disaster, when we're expecting chaos, when we're expecting failure, that's exactly what returns to us. And if you guys study the occult and esoterics and just different schools of thought when it pertains to spirituality, you guys are probably fully aware of this. And this is why people like Jesus said, ask and you shall receive, by your faith you are healed. All of these different types of proverbs and parables, right? And it is because the way that this reality works, essentially that's what is sending out the signal, right, to the reality in order to kind of create what we're perceiving, because everything works on frequency, right? Whether this is, us receiving electrical signals, and that's what our brain does. Essentially, it's like a fucking, a hard drive or some type of, decryptor or transmitter, if you will. Right? We receive electrical impulses or signals through the air. They come through waves, right? And we hear the sound vibration that is transmitted into our head, right through our brain. We pick up that signal and we hear a sound, right? Our brain interprets it as a sound. Well, we only see, 0.0000001% of the electromagnetic light spectrum, so we've got a very, very shitty seat in the house when it comes to, reality as a whole in all of creation. When we're interpreting things with our eyes, and this is kind of like you ever see like a mirrored effect with shit as well. We're actually same thing. We're picking up those light waves. They're actually bouncing off the back of our eye, and we're seeing everything inverted. And this just kind of goes to show, and we'll get into this in a moment. A lot of people refer to, you know, our reality as being inverted, right? Or upside down, you know? And you even hear this in like, you know, secular shows like Stranger Things and shit like that, right? The upside down, the underworld, right? Well, in essence, what is happening, you know, we're perceiving those images, and I've talked about this, and I won't get deep into this, but, you know, we're receiving the light and the vibration from the stars, and our sun being the number one star that gives us most of our spiritual awareness. But we also have the 7 main heavenly bodies within our soul system, right? Saturn being that father, Mercury being Odin, or the messenger of the gods, so on and so forth, right? And each one of those astrologically pertains to an energy. They all have their own archetypical energy or pattern, right? And how they work. So they're all transmitting signal, right? They're giving off light, they're vibrating, you know? And I believe they're probably more akin to crystalline if we like actually was able to get up on them and see. You know, science would most definitely disagree on that. You know, and we see even like Terrence Howard's work when he was on Joe Rogan, showing like the dodecahedrons and shit like that. It actually correlates to that hexagonal pole on Saturn. So it's like, you know, we do see these polygons and different shapes that are found within the matrix all over within the planets themselves, right? And I've talked about this before when we look at the study of like Gnosticism. You know, the Gnostics believe that, you know, reality itself is made up of a demiurge, right? And this demiurge, or these archons, were the rulers of the reality. Now, a lot of people want to go ahead and correlate that to gods, to deities, to aliens, and I'm not saying that that's not true. I'm not saying that there isn't, you know, entities that are conscious and aware. I believe all of the planets, all of the stars are in fact conscious and aware. We just probably don't understand that level of consciousness and awareness because we're not there yet, right? We're not there yet. And it would be more, and who knows, it could actually be what we are at a distance, right? So we do see these frequencies, these signals, this light, right, coming through, and it goes off of the firmament, or through the firmament, and acts as like a prism, right? All of the lights being separated, okay? All of this light's being separated, and this is what kind of makes up the reality. That's why you see in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, it talks about we were made in the image, right, which is a phantom projection or an illusion of the Elohim, which is the supreme magistrates, or it's the heavenly host, the luminaries, the stars, right? So in essence, you know, we are this, you know, in a simulation where we're actually existing, you know, consciousness is existing outside of where we currently reside, you know, within, you know, Earth, and whatever you want to call it. You know, to me, it kind of reminds me of like a fucking fish tank, if you want to think about it, you know? It's like, but we're like the light bulb way up here, you know, kind of projecting down, or consciousness as a whole projecting down, you know, through the firmament, right? Through that firmament, separating light, actually allowing us to experience, you know, the illusion of division and separation, but it's all actually coming from one source, right? One source kind of thought it all into reality, you know, and it goes from the micro to the macro, right? So we, in essence, we are a divine spark of that one source. We have the same ability as the creator. That's why we are the, you know, the children of God, or sons of God, okay? And when you think about the concept of, you know, Jesus and all of this, and, you know, I'm not going to tell you what to believe as far as religions go, but, you know, Son of Man is like referring to humans, right? And how he died on the cross, right? You know, the cross actually represents like the physical world and shit like that. So it's like, you know, we are, in essence, you know, we are putting ourselves off, you know, down here and giving up that physical for, you know, that higher consciousness, or that ascension state that we call Christ, or Christos, which means anointing, right? Anointing. Everything working in vibration, everything working in frequency. Give me one moment, guys. And some people don't like, you know, me talking about this stuff, because it's always, whenever we get into religion, you know, we got to understand, religion is one of the most divisive subjects, one of the most divisive topics you could ever get into, that and politics, right? And the reason being, and think about it too, you know, and just kind of like you know, really wrap your head around it. And if you guys are in the chat, make sure to hit the thumbs up. The reason being, you know, especially because whenever we get into something that our emotions get involved, right, the logical side of our brain turns off. And I've said this many times that, you know, trauma-based mind control and, you know, mind control in general, right, propaganda, all of that, that's how this shit works. You know, they always want to trigger an emotional response for you. That way you're no longer thinking logically about something. You're no longer open-minded anymore about something, right? You become closed off, right? You get tunnel vision and focused on whatever you were indoctrinated into your entire life. Not sure what you're saying. Right, dying to your lower self, exactly. And that's, you know, and that's exactly what the physical is, right? This is our shadow. This is our shadow aspect. This is the shade, if you will, you know, of that higher self. So, you know, everything, and you guys are, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the theory. It's called quantum confirmation. It's not very popular. I've only heard a handful of people really talk about it. I'm sure there's a lot more than I've seen, but, you know, quantum confirmation is basically, you know, built on the same premise of, you know, manifestation and the law of attraction, right? And it's saying that it works, you know, with AI and technology, you know, artificial intelligence, the same way that it does within, you know, our general reality and the way that our thoughts and emotions, you know, kind of work to manifest, you know. Now, I want you to think, too, you know, whenever you are, you know, looking at Facebook, YouTube, whatever platform you enjoy the most, and you're watching videos, you know, a lot of people, you know, a lot of people, and you're getting fed right through the algorithms, you're getting reinforced back to you whatever your beliefs are, right? They'll give you kind of two roads to go, and this is confirming your reality. Quantum confirmation, right? It's confirming your reality. The algorithm is built on the same principles that our reality is built on. So if you walk around your entire fucking life and you know, you're sick and you're helpless and you're this and you're that, that's going to manifest into your life, right? You've adopted that energy. You've accepted that as your identity and your label, and you can guarantee that you're riding that vibration energetically, and you're gonna, you know, coast on that for as long as you believe that, because that's the frequency that's being interpreted by your brain. That's becoming the thoughts. That's becoming the emotions, which is energy, emotion, and that's what you're attracting to with your aura, you know, and you're repelling good experiences, right? Because those are the laws of polarity, right? Like within Hermetics, same thing with, you know, technology. So, hey, if you're a diehard fucking MAGA dude, or, you know, you're a nihilist, an atheist, or whatever, right? And you're diehard, you know, you're constantly looking at this, you're constantly watching this, you know, only things that you're going to get is you're going to get the polar opposite of that, right? Whatever you don't believe in will be the polar opposite in that. And what that's doing is actually pushing you more towards whatever your beliefs are, right? It's enforcing those beliefs, right, by polarizing you back in the other direction. That way you're not, it's kind of keeping you in line. This is how, you know, algorithms and technology is so clever, you know. And if you think about all of that, and, you know, we can get into this too. I don't know if we're going to get into it the entire video, but, you know, how I believe that, you know, what we see with technology, how people think, you know, the whole transhumanist agenda, and, you know, we're getting so fucking close to AI running the world, and, you know, all of that. I think people are going to be fucking really surprised when they find out that AI, you know, not only does it mimic, you know, reality itself, you know, magnetism, electricity, because everything is electrical and magnetic. The electric giving off the positive, right, force, and magnetism having that, you know, that pull, you know, that negative force. So you have all of this, and when you see, like, you know, the pyramids, you know, the manas and all these shit from all of these ancient cultures that are all over the world, that, mind you, they're all located on these, you know, major earth grids, right? These ley lines, right, where the earth energy is the most prominent. And they are designed, you know, like some of them, the ones with the spiral or conic. And I was talking to, he's going to be a guest on the show. His name's Dr. Harvey Kaplan. he's coming onto the show, probably this next week coming up. And we were talking about some of this stuff, you know, and how, you know, stealth jets and fighter jets and all this shit, they have this conical antenna that, you know, steers the jets through, you know, helps them with the radar and their fighting capabilities and all of that, and how that actually mimics the very tops and steeples on a lot of these, you know, vimanas and, you know, shit like that, you know, in the Buddhist cultures and India and, you know, the Eastern world. It's the same exact design to a T. I don't know if you guys have ever heard, and I want to shout him out because he's got some crazy fucking work. Crazy work. And it's baseforge.us is the site. I mean, dude sells books, so there's not a lot of freebie shit on there. But basically, essentially what this guy has done, you know, has put in, you know, the how to decode the matrix through artificial intelligence, you know, and it's like, and it's a cool channel. It's very interesting, you know, and he's, you know, Walter Russell and Terrence Howard, he's dissected quite a few things. You know, and that's what, you know, AI has discovered for this guy, you know, is that all of these designs that we see, you know, they mimic computer chips. They mimic, you know, the digital antennas and the shit that we're using of today, right? And where we're getting all of these highly advanced technological designs, we're actually, you know, way back then, it's actually inside of the Great Pyramid and everything. And that when we look at how, you know, ferrofluid operates and magnetism and electricity, all of these shapes, like the pyramids and shit like that, are like the perfect conductors for these things as well. You know, so I know a lot of people want to try and fucking act like, you know, civilization's like only 6,000 years old. It's stupid as shit. But if that's what you believe, that's what you believe, right? If you believe it's only 6,000 years old and, you know, whatever the religious Bible thumpers tell you, that's on you, man. But, you know, there's a lot of evidence, especially when it comes to, like, the Great Pyramids of Giza, right, with the erosion lines and shit. And, what's his name? Shock, right? And he talks about how it's at least over 10,000 years, and that it's evidence of, like, a, you know, a deluge or a flood. And depending on what your, you know, your belief is pertaining to that, you know, if you believe in a deluge or a flood, I believe that there probably was a worldwide flood, because if we look at, like, the soil records and shit like that, there is evidence, you know, of something like that, you know, and, you know, the Younger Dryas and Ice Ages and shit like that. So, and I do believe more than likely when our cycles, our astrological cycles actually begin and end, that a lot of times it probably does actually coincide with, you know, cataclysmic events on Earth. Maybe not every single time, but it looks like it's happened more than once, right? And what creates that, you know, what we call a pole shift, I no longer believe is a pole shift on, like, what you're taught, you know, by, what is it, the guy that did the CIA. You guys remember the CIA document? I mean, I've covered the shit here on the channel. And what is it called? What is it called? Anybody, you guys remember the document? Anybody in the chat? CIA. It's on crustal displacement. It's on pole shift. Does anybody remember that document? If you have it, I'm going to drop the link too. But anyway, so, you know, the CIA had this, you know, document on pole shift. You know, I think it was back in the 60s or something like that. They used a pen name for the guy that actually did it. He ended up going on to write books. The guy that did the, you know, the study, and they talked about, you know, how, what it would be like, you know, for crustal displacement and magnetic reversal and pole shift. And I shit you not, man. You know, it's like one of the most terror-filled descriptions of, you know, catastrophe you could ever imagine. It's like, if anybody survived, you know, that particular scenario, you'd be lucky, right? If there were any survivals. What was it, guys? You guys remember? Not mud floods in Tartaria, but that is also 40 days. Yes, see, man, like, my community is just legit, dude. So they all know so much shit about so many different things. I would have to look it up, man. I'm sorry, it's not on the top of my head. The Adam and Eve story. The Adam and Eve story, I just remembered. The Adam and Eve story is the name of the document. You can get a free PDF download. They did come up with, you know, like an extended one that had the rest of the information and shit like that as well, guys. So I mean, you know, but either way, the Adam and Eve story, and they talked about the crustal displacement and, you know, what it would be like, and that basically, what did they say, like the only people that would even survive were those who like hung on the lee side of Pikes Peak and shit like that. I mean, talking about how the inundation from the winds and shit would basically, the poles would shift, and weather, the winds, all of it, the magnetism, because the electromagnetic field, you know, is displacing as well, right? And anybody that watches Maverick Star Reloaded, which is a good channel, dude, it's a good ass channel, he keeps track of the magnetic poles, right? And the magnetic poles and the physical poles are two different things, right? So the magnetic polar positions of south and north, because all magnets, you know, have bipoles or two poles, he tracks them, and we've seen the migration of magnetic north, you know, and it's migrating to, I believe, Siberia is where the new place is. And, you know, what this guy's theory is essentially is when we get to a certain point of the magnetic poles, I think it's within like 40 miles of the new pole, that what we'll start to see is stability in the electromagnetic field, right, which will then kind of cause that shift and that flip. I mean, I don't believe that that's what will happen at all. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe that's what happened. Because honestly, you know, when, you know, we kind of like look at these things from the past, you know, I believe most of what when we're being taught about magnetic pole shift, it's not so much a physical phenomenon. It's not so much a physical phenomena, or, you know, and I do believe there is a physical manifestation of it, you know, and I do believe that it is caused by, you know, our sun and the different solar cycles that we have, and we know that, you know, solar radiation and all this, and the greenhouse gases and all this shit, right? There's so many different effects from everything that's operating, because it's all connected, you know, but when we think about a pole reversal, I believe it's talking about the pole of humanity, right? Like, we're shifting from a negatively oriented species to a positively oriented species. And I believe we've been on the positive before, you know? If you look in astrological ages, and it's called the precession of the equinox. Precession of the equinox, you know, and we can kind of like look back on these different ages, you know, throughout history of the earth, and whatever sign the sun is in, that is the age that we're in. That's why we're leaving the age of Pisces, going into the age of Aquarius. Now, I want you to kind of think about that. All of a sudden, all over the world, as we enter in to the age of Pisces, right, which is the fish and all of this, right, and which is the water sign, right? When we enter into the age of Pisces, that's when you hear of great deluges and great floods and shit like that all over the world. That's when you hear of the fall in human consciousness and all of this, right? Guy's about to get bagged. You don't even know there's a cop right here. Anyways, you know, so that's when we see this major fucking shift, right? You know, and you can kind of see that more and more and more if we go through history. You think about all the different religions, right? You have Old Testament God, you know, who was in the age of Aries, right? The ram, and that's where you get all the Marduk shit from the Sumerian, Akkadian, right? All of the Anunnaki shit, right? This is where all of that fucking derives from, guys, is because we come from the age of Aries, which is fire. And think about it. What did he do when he went on Mount Sinai, right? Which is sin, AI, right? Just saying. When he went on Mount Sinai, what did Moses, or Moshe, which I also believe is Akhenaten, what did he find, right? The burning bush, right? The fire sign of Aries, you know, and fire represents magic and the occult as well. And what was he able to do? What was he able to do during that age? I'll answer it for you. He was able to take his rod, his staff, and throw it down. And what it do? It turned into a serpent and devoured itself. Was this actually humanity descending down. Remember, I told you in the very beginning, if you were able to keep up with me, right, that we actually, and this is according to the Bible, so you can take it or leave it, man. You don't have to, you know. And I've got many other spiritual books that'll back up exactly what I'm saying right now. So, you know, pick one. I'll tell you the different variation of it. So, when we talk about Genesis, you know, in the beginning, right, humankind was made, you know, in the image of the Elohim. Elohim, supreme magistrates, which is also the messengers, the watchers, the luminaries, the heavenly host. And remember, God is the Lord of hosts, right? The heavenly host, you know, and they're the ones who made humankind according to Genesis, right? If you look at the etymology of the word, and, you know, and some people, it's up to you. I'll just tell you, you know, you can either A, listen to the indoctrination from the churches that you belong to or went to, you know, or you can B, listen to, you know, the shit language translations, you know, from like fucking, you know, English and NIV and New Living Translation and English Standard Version and all these different horseshit versions of the Bible, right, where the languages aren't even fucking equivalent, y'all. I'm just saying, you know. These things actually derive from, you know, Hebrew or Hebraic, Aramaic, and Greek. You know, and we're sitting here trying to fucking decipher it with this modern slang version of a language. We're not even the original English here, right? We're American version of English, right? The real English, we've already spun that out of something. We're trying to translate it, you know, back into that, and we can get a similar meaning, but not the grasp or the whole, you know, the whole essence of what's actually being spoken or what's actually being said. And when we look at the etymology of those words, right, that's what we find. We find that it's something totally different than what's being told to us by the religious, you know, indoctrination that we've been fed through Christianity and, you know, all of the other religions of the world. You know, it's just not lining up. It's just not adding up. And remember, words are incredibly significant. And why are they incredibly significant? I'll tell you. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. You get me? What words do is allow us to be conscious in the first place, right? We would not be able to even communicate with ourselves if we didn't have the ability to be able to, you know, to have words, to be able to talk back and forth to our own self. You get me? You do it in your mind. It's called your conscience. Right? Where you're sitting there going back and forth, discuss, shouldn't I? Hey, I gotta go to work today, I'd sure like to get off early. I want some Cheetos, you know? That's you. That's the word right there. And isn't it funny how all of these, you know, extremely occulted, hermetic, esoteric schools of thought all talk about, you know, Thoth or Totme, right? Thought, right? And he's this God of enlightenment and wisdom and all of this, right? This God of knowledge, right? The thought. Why? Because that's exactly what consciousness is, right? The ability to communicate with yourself. The thought becomes emotions. Emotions are energy in motion, right? You're giving off energy, right? It's being transferred from that thought to an energy in motion, which then acts through your electromagnetic field or your aura to either attract or repel, right, different things to you and from you in your life. And your DNA is your genetic code or your algorithm, if you will, of your aura, right, of your soul. You know, that's why genetic codes are all so different, right? They're all these different little variations or markers of our genetic makeup, which is our spiritual makeup as well, right? It's our spirit. That's why nobody's is just the same. And that's why, you know, our fingerprints, you know, we have an electromagnetic fingerprint, you know. No two fingerprints are the same. The top of our head, right? Everything about us is unique because we're all different combinations or variations of the infinite source or creator. So when we talk about this, and I've talked about it before, like the Bhagavad Gita and, different Buddhist schools of thought and principles, when they talk about reincarnation, what they're actually talking about, right, is not necessarily your ass coming back as Greg when you were Jerry last lifetime, right? Don't have to be. Or coming back as a fucking frog, when you're a butterfly, What it actually is us in this infinite sea of spirit, of energy, this infinite sea of life that actually gives manifestation or creation to all things, and that would be the source. Now, we can't describe it with our words. Why? Because words comes out of it, right? Words is, our attempt to be able to explain something that's inexplainable. And that's why the Gnostics, when they talked about the creator God, it wasn't Yahweh, right? Which means hands nailed, feet nailed, by the way. And then think about Jesus, okay? Hands nailed, feet nailed. He was nailed on the cross. In the Tetragrammaton and all of that. But think about what they said. They said he was the ineffable, inexpressible one, right? The ineffable, inexpressible one. Meaning, no word could be uttered to encompass what the creator was, because it all comes from him. He ain't good because good comes from him, right? He isn't light because light comes from within him, right? He's everything. He's not God because gods are made by him. It's like nothing we can even comprehend or come up with or even utter can explain, or is adequate for what that is. And I've heard it explained this way, and there's a few different ways to kind of think about this, and one way is this. I want you to kind of think about, before you was born, okay? And everybody hit that thumbs up for me if you guys are watching in chat. I really do appreciate it. Before you were born, okay? Do you have any memories? No. No. You don't know who you were. There was no identity. You just were, right? And a lot of people believe that state, right? That what do they call it? It's got a name in the occult. Pre-something. Ooh, gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. But anyways, I think it's anti-primal triad, and this is in the Book of Lies, I believe, by Aleister Crowley, and they talk about the anti-primal triad and all of this, and it says is not God, right? That God, like, it is not God, but that's what actually God is. So it's like you go from, this anti, like space, just the blackness, just the sea of everything. That's actually God. And Alan Watts had, a lecture where he dictates it and he says, she's black, right? Talking about God, she's black. She's that negative void of the divine feminine, and you can take that or leave it or whatever, but, then our patriarchal idea of the sky daddy, right, would be that positive or protrusion of that masculine, right, that's able to control and, and kind of getting back to Moses when I was talking about the different cycles, okay? And how that staff that he had in his hand, and we know that in the occult and the esoteric, a staff, what it actually represents is kingship, right? Kingship. And we'll get into a video at least, maybe a little bit later, but we will get into one where we talk about the numbers and shit like that, what they actually mean, like the number 40, right? The number 40 is representative of a king, and think about, Jesus, he was 40 days in the desert. Moses was 40 years, you get me? These are very, very significant, and if you look at the numerological codes of Enki is 40. Just saying, which Enki and Enlil are the two brothers from, the Sumerian, Akkadian, Anunnaki brothers, right? Which I believe represent the solar and lunar pillar, or the red and blue pillar, the black and white, right? Like, That's what they represent to me. You know, one being kind of like the Lucifer-esque. Well, we would kind of be the Lucifer-esque, but one being more like the Christ or the Thoth type of figure, or Lucifer, which is the intellect, and the other kind of having the Hasatan, or you know, Satan, or you know, the Yahweh type of energy or embodiment. Right, when we look at Enki and Enlil, but Moses or Moshe, aka Akhenaten, and the reason I believe that Moses is actually Akhenaten is because if you look at, they were written on brass, or allegedly pre-Diluvian. It is the Colburn Bible is the name of it, and a lot of these texts and stuff, you know, you'll find in you know, there are older versions of, you know, current spiritual books and things like that, you know, but it talks about after there's 3 chapters on the destroyer, right? and I kind of want you to think about the destroyer concept. A lot of people go ahead and go to Planet X, and I got a pretty good series I did, yeah, maybe about 6 months ago or more, on Planet X. I used to crush it, man. I love Planet X, talking about it. And it's not what you guys think, you know, not the people who watch regularly, but it's not what the people that will see this and have never seen anything, probably. You know, the whole Nibiru concept, I don't believe so. You know, if you think about the whole dark star concept, you know, twin, all of that, we'll kind of get into that, you know, but that would be like a solar and lunar, a black and white, a dark and a light, right? Those 2 brothers, once again. And we look at the story of Nibiru. You know, Nibiru had gold for its atmosphere, and they needed gold to repair the atmosphere, right, of the planet. And it was on an elongated orbit. And those orbits, I think, I don't know, they weren't Baktunes. What did they call them? They called them something else. I believe Baktunes are from the Mayans. You know, the end of the long count, the Baktunes. What were they called? They were called Shars. Shars was the years according to Nibiru. And Nibiru, in the text of, what is it called? One second, guys. It's another one of these texts. The Enuma Elish, right? The Enuma Elish. If we look at what Nibiru actually translates to, it's Jupiter. It's Jupiter. It's fucking Jupiter. And anybody who's watched my channel for a long time will know that this was a theory I started developing years ago, before any of this shit was ever, I don't know if it's cool, I'm still not cool, I'm a nerd. Before any of this shit was as popular as it is now, you know, where you got, you know, Billy Carson and shit, all these people are like famous from talking about these things. You know, back before then, you know, we were discussing this, you know, and we were talking about, you know, Jupiter, right? And like Jehovah, right? Jehovah is Jove given, right? And that's Jupiter too, Jove, right? is Jove given, right? So we were talking about how, you know, a lot of this seemed to be Jupiter, and you think about Jupiter as well, and there's these 2 brothers, right? And they are akin to Jupiter and Saturn, astrologically. And Jupiter, you know, he's that planet of expansion, you know? And think about Christ, another akin to Jupiter, right? He bore our stripes. Jupiter's the stripe planet, right? I mean, it goes on and on and on, the different, you know, the different connections, you know? And we can look at Zeus and Thor and just all of the, and, you know, Jesus. Jesus, right? Zeus, you know? So, all of this, you know, all of this. And there are even theories, you know, of like the whole Jupiter ascending. You know, I don't know if you guys are aware of like the whole Jupiter ascending theory. I know it's a movie, right? It's not that good. You know, Channing Tatum, I think, is in it. But the theory of like the Jupiter ascension, you know, I did a video with Dave Dobbs, which you guys can see a lot of my classic videos on the backup channel, Best Damn Podcast 2, which, you know, it'll be down at the bottom of this channel. Make sure to subscribe, hit the thumbs up. If you guys are in the chat, please. It don't cost nothing, and it helps tremendously. So the Jupiter ascending thing is basically like, you know, it's like the theory of like the sun. I believe all planets are stars. That's what I believe. Okay, I do. And you know, it's this theory of like, you know, Jupiter, and you know, there's the asteroid belt, right? The hammered bracelet, according to the Norse. And you know, some people believe, there are schools of thought that believe that Earth at one point was a moon of Jupiter, a satellite of Jupiter. That Venus was even a satellite of Jupiter. And, you know, and that's the whole thing, like Venus is associated with Lucifer's, you know, and it's supposed to be Earth-like, and like all of a sudden now it's a planet on fire and shit, like the fall from grace. There's just different schools of thought, which I'm not saying they're true at all, guys, but I'm saying they can be used to kind of explain astrological events or energetic expressions or archetypes, you know, surrounding these different things. You know, but it's that, you know, Jupiter, every, I think it's 6,500 years, and it'll coincide too. And another thing about Nibiru, the whole concept of Nibiru, it is Jupiter and Saturn conjunction. So right, well, whenever we look at the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, what we actually see, and this is when Jupiter, which you know, that's Jesus, you know, or you know, maybe it's and remember, Enki's son Marduk is the one who actually ascends to the throne as well. So maybe this is, you know, the whole Enki Marduk thing as well. Who knows? Who knows? But it ascends in front of the planet Saturn. So this is the, you know, and a lot of people call this the Saturn moon matrix, right? Meaning Saturn being like the all-father. You know, Saturn rules this solar system, and you have Neptune and Uranus, which are outside of the control of Saturn, you know. And Neptune and Uranus, they have similarities, you know, to Jupiter and Saturn. Both of them do, but they're more of like, you know, a dream state, you know, outside of, you know, into the astral when it comes to astrologically, right? So they're outside of the control of Saturn. Saturn kind of controls everything through astrology, and, you know, it rules. It's, you know, the god of this world. Saturn, Satan, right? And you can believe that or not, but that is, you know, that's where you get like the Masonic cube, 1 + 5, 1 + 5, 1 + 5, 666, where you get the hexagonal North Pole, all-seeing eye on the South Pole, right? In that hexagon, right? Hex, right? Think about it, just saying. You know, whenever you're hex somebody, you're talking about breaking out of the box, right? That's the cube, the black cube, which correlates to the mind as well. That's why you see those at Mecca. You know, what are they doing? They're all dancing around, running around a fucking black and gold cube, right? And they're mimicking the rings around Saturn, right? Jewish people with the cubes on their third eye, right? Just saying, over and over and over, you see this. And what is, and this is a doozy, right? Are they telling an astrological story? Probably. Think about this, and I really want you to kind of, this is a good one. Okay, so you have this cube, right? Now, what about Jesus? What was he crucified on, right? He was pierced 5 times, okay? Right? 5 times can correlate to the pentacle or the pentagram, right? Which represents the starfish body. We have, you know, 5 appendages, right? Digitaria are digits as well, right? 5 fingers, 5 toes, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So it's also the 5 senses, right? Being crucified, you know, the 5 senses as well, right? So we have the 5 senses that are pierced, you know, and the last one, you know, being the heart, which water comes out, right? And we know that water holds memory, and just, we can go on and on and on and on and on with the symbology or the symbolism of the crucifixion of Christ. Remember, Son of Man being, you know, a man, or, you know, someone, you know, a human, okay? Where was I at with this? Oh, and, right? So he's on the cross, right? The cross in astrology represents the physical world as well, right? And a lot of you guys have been double-crossed astrologically, and you don't even know. You guys have all been double-crossed. And you know, you're tied down to this, which we'll get into another time, about how to do all that. But the cube, broken open, whenever you break the cube open, that's the cross. That's a cross. A cross is a box. It's a cube busted open. Whoo! Think about that, right? The black cube. You know, the black cube. Tempted 40 days in the desert. The desert, you know, in the occult is the place of initiation, right? The desert, right? And the desert being because this is where all of the senses, all of nature is separate, right? Water and dirt, they don't mix, right? You go to other places throughout, you know, nature, you know, it's like mud, water and dirt, soil are mixed, it's mud, right? So on and so forth. Precipitation in the air, right? But all of the elements are separate there, right? And this is like just, you know, it's not truly that way, but this is what the premise is, or the idea of that, and that's why they do the initiation in the desert and all of that, right? And you'll see a lot of people whenever they sell their soul, okay, or they've been initiated, a lot of them, what they will do, like, you know, artists and shit like that, like music videos, you'll see them like walking in the desert, like the portrayal of Jesus and all of that, right? They will. And guys, if you're in the chat, there's like 40 something, it keeps bouncing between 40, 50, 60 people in the chat. Hit the thumbs up for me. Thank you. I really would appreciate it. That gets more people in here and just gets the video to be able to be seen more. It's free to do. You solved the mystery of life. Take the pebble and go, my son. That's so funny. That is so funny. And if you guys, yeah, Pandora's box. Absolutely. Yes. And to kind of get back to the whole Lucifer and all of that, Pandora was the wife of what we would call Prometheus's brother, right? And Prometheus, the one who gave the spark of life, right? Enlightenment, light, the you know, the burning bush, so on and so forth, right? To humanity. And then what happened? Zeus, you know, that motherfucker, he got jealous, right? And he took a Taurus, right? A bull, which was in the age of Taurus, you know, and Prometheus divided it up, and he put all the bullshit in the biggest pile, right? And he knew that Zeus, because he's a fucktard, you know, wanted to actually, and sorry, but knew that he would take the biggest because he was one of the gods, right? And all the good stuff was in the smaller pile, and he tricked Zeus, you know, giving all the good stuff to humanity because they wanted to take the light back from humanity. Prometheus stole the spark from heaven, you know, and it was 50. I believe it's 50 pieces or 50 something like that. And that's why you have like the 50 stars in the United States and all of that, guys. It's all occult, esoteric. I shit you not, every last bit of it. You know, Libertas, or Statue of Liberty, is Hecate, you know. She's Hecate, you know, which is a triune god as well, right? She was a trinity also. She was a god of witchcraft, sexual promiscuity, and something else. You know, and a lot of what came from the Greeks, you know, which derived into the Romans and all of that, we now have, right? We're like a great grandson of like those, you know, ancient Greeks that were living in such a high level of civilization, you know, and they went to Egypt, right? And they, you know, Hermes and all of this, it's history, which is his story, you know, and our account of how things actually work and how things actually went, you know, is not what we think. We're taught that ancient civilizations and our ancestors didn't actually have technology, and they weren't as intelligent, they weren't as advanced or in tune with things as we are now, you know. What the actual truth is, you know, they were so much more in tune, so much farther advanced technologically than us. What they actually did, and this is gonna blow your fucking mind, this is what I believe, okay? all the pyramids and shit like that, you know, that's evidence that they were able to harness large fucking amounts of earth energy and celestial energy, right? Completely. They were that fucking in tune. They were in tune with the entire vibration of the planet. I believe probably was like one giant, everybody was connected to each other. There was no illusion of separation consciously. I believe they were extremely advanced. And that's why, you know, as I talked about earlier, you know, the design of the Vimanas and the pyramids and how they were on these ley lines and earth grids, and, you know, how were they able to harness energy, and, you know, how they have been in experiments, you know, and how they work with different ferro fluids and all of this, right? So it's no bullshit. You know, it ain't a theory, really, if you have a brain between your ears. It wasn't aliens that built anything, it was us. You know, and that's my opinion. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, you know, or anything like that. I'm not. That's my opinion. When they talk about how man walked with the gods, right? I believe what it's actually talking about, and think about it, remember what the gods actually meant, okay? It's not what you think, like, when we are taught that, you know, that the gods was, you know, deities in the sky and shit like that. And remember, Anunnaki, those from the heavens came, okay? We were the ones who came from the heavens, in my opinion. You know, when we walked with the gods, it meant we were in touch with the universal consciousness, source consciousness, all the time. We were probably telepathic. We probably moved things with sound, and, you know, there was free energy. I mean, I don't think that, you know, it was like a planet-wide Wi-Fi, you know, but for our consciousness. And people can say what they want. It's, you know, these are opinions. Nobody knows for sure. Excuse me. Shit. Nobody knows for sure either way, right? Nobody knows for sure. We're all kicking it down here on planet Earth, or, you know, and think about planet, the base word of planet, plane, right? Plane Ea, you know, that takes us back to Enki and Enlil. Enki's original name was Ea, right? He was Lord of the water first, then Lord of the earth, okay? And that was allegedly the creator, you know, according to the Sumerians, okay, of humankind, you know. And we were actually ruled by the Lord Commander Enlil, right, which was his brother, the younger brother. And if you think about it just truthfully, you know what it actually means? And I'll tell you a little secret. Enki represents like the spirit, you know, the intellect. He was Lord of the earth first, right? Meaning the body derived from the earth, right? And then Lord of the water. The water is the ethers, right? Water above and below the firmament. And we know that in the reality of the rulers, it talks about the hypothesis of the Archons. The reality of the rulers, it talks about how when we were put here, or when this was created, the Archons made this, which, you know, the heavenly hosts, the luminaries, all of that. I've talked about how we derive from that in the book of Genesis. Go back if you didn't see it. They separated the waters above the firmament and the waters below. And remember, the firmament is the arc, right? The arc, right? Which acts as the prism to separate that light, you know, and create what we call soul luminescence, or star in a jar, which is how we're actually made. Remember, we are heavenly host, Lord of hosts, you know, host body system, okay? It all kind of makes sense when you really start to wrap your head around all these things. And I know I'm probably talking a little fast for some of you guys, and, you know, those who aren't familiar with it, you know, maybe you think it's all bullshit. Maybe you think it just sounds so fantastical that it couldn't be true, absolutely true, you know? There's no way, it's impossible. And this guy don't know what he's talking about, and he's going to hell, and he's deceiving people and leading them astray. And it's like, what I would ask you to do, this is just an ask, you know, I'm not telling you, I'm asking you, you know, to keep an open mind and consider, you know, that there are different possibilities and different descriptions of what we've been told by religion and what we've been indoctrinated into believe. Now think about it. all we could truly understand. You know, we went through dark ages. I talked about how the different cycles change and shift, right? We went from the Taurian age, right? Taurus, and that's when we had all of the Venusian life and all of that, right? Everything was all about Venus and luxury and the divine feminine and Isis and Ishtar and, you know, right? Everything was about that during the age of Taurus, right? Taurus being like the toroidal field and all of that, okay? That was kind of like, and if you think about it too, think about it, they talk about in different mythos or mythologies about these different ages, okay? And we could go to Mount Olympus, Mount Sinai, Mount Hermon, right? All these mounts, right? And they all have kind of, you know, this is where, you know, a creation or, you know, the whole story kind of kicks off every time, right? And what it actually means, you know, the mount is a zenith. It represents, like, you know, the mountain. That's why they talk about in the Bible, you know, to flee to the hills of Judea, right? You know, it's a state of consciousness. It's a high position in consciousness, right? But we talk about Olympus and the gods, right? The Olympians and the Titans. And before that, the primordial beings, right? Primordial entities. Here, let's see what this is. Potentially inappropriate. Oh, come on, you motherfucker. Here, I got him. Tide user. Eat a dick. So we got them out there. Yeah, come on, bro. Like, some people are just so pathetic. Wasn't hugged enough as a child or something. I don't know, guys. Anyways, I'm not even giving no more attention. But, so when we talk about these different, you know, concepts of the primordial entities, and you hear about the stories, and I believe it was Neptune. Am I right? Neptune and Gaia, they got together first. It was Neptune or Uranus, one of the two. Which I talked about this, right? Outside of the Saturn moon matrix, right? Outside of the soul system, right? In the control of Saturn or Satan, right? I believe it's, anybody know? Neptune or Uranus, which was in the primordials? Here you go, Claudette. There you go, Claudette. Thank you, Claudette, too. I appreciate it. Yeah, I need a moderator in there to bust some heads. Anyways, so, do you guys, what's Uranus? Thank you. Who is that? Dilbert? Thank you, Dilbert. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, so it was Uranus, right? And, you know, Uranus representing, you know, essentially the astral, you know, and it was also a water planet as well, right? So it represents water, the astral, expansion, rebellion, all of these things. You know, when you think about like fallen angels and how they rebel and all of this, right? It just kind of really starts to kick in and make sense. You're like, what the fuck is going on? You know, how did this happen? You know, especially when we look at the Bible and it talks about, you know, the story of the stars and how we were created by the Elohim, which were the stars, you know. And not to worship the stars, right? Because it's us. It's us. What? And, you know, you're not supposed to worship an idol either, which is your physical self. You know, phantom, projection, illusion, or an idol. So, you know, you have Uranus and Gaia, which is Earth, you know, and the ether, the astral, the, you know, the water, and all this kind of put together. Now, then think about the concept of, you know, Enki and Enlil, right? Enki, he was first Ea, right? Lord of the water, then Lord of the earth, right? Same two elements, okay? And this always goes on time and time again. Before that, right, you had the Titans, which was Kronos, right? Kronos, which is Saturn. You know, these were the planets, right? So they all keep, you know, it's going from the raw fucking elements mixing with the earth, you know, after this descent from the planets themselves, then to these Olympians or demigods, right? Deities, little g gods, that that walked with mankind, and this is every fucking culture, I don't care which one it is. You can look at the Norse, they are called, shit, starts with an A, I believe. Guys, I have a whole entire playlist on, I think it's called Mysteries of the Gods. I do an entire playlist on this, and I talk about the Sumerians, or Anunnaki, right, and their tale, which was Anunnaki, the Ajiji. It's the same thing. There's a procession going on here. And the Greeks, right, the Olympians, the Titans, the Primordials, you keep going, right? Nephilim, Elohim, right, and man. I can do this all night long, right? Like, this is how it is. This is how it works. Every culture is trying to say the same fucking story. You know? The same story. It started off as one consciousness. You know, and I believe it's called Children of the Law of One. I think that's the name of the book. The Children of the Law of One, it talks about the primordial entities and how they were one consciousness. And it's a beautiful story, actually. I've also covered this as well. I believe it's in the Forbidden Occult series. So you guys can check out these playlists. They're fucking killers. Some of my best work. My favorites. Forbidden Occult and the Mysteries of the Gods. Both of those guys. I mean, watch this video first. This will give you like a... But this will give you all the backstories on everything, right? The Norse mythologies, and I think they were the Asir and the Norse, right? And then you had the deities and the gods. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Every single culture across the world telling the same story. And then let's try to correlate those to the astrological ages, right? These astrological ages were no fucking joke. Like I said, the Taurian age, right? Taurus, right? Those were all elements. Taurus, Earth, you know, Venus, Venusian, feminine, Isis, Ishtar, you know, Hecate, all of these, okay? Then you go to Aries, right? And this is like the prominence where it comes back up of, you know, and I can just, man, there's so much to this. So Aries as, you know, his rise, which was the ram, right? And there's Marduk, you know, Marduk. And I believe that, you know, we went from this divine feminine, everybody being connected, right, and enlightened all across the world. And that might even be kind of like an Atlantean type of state as well. I don't know. That would be like your Olympians as well, probably. You know, and then we descend down because we start from, you know, one. You know, so that's why Lucifer falls, right? He's falling to the bottom, boom, bouncing back up. You know, and going up Jacob's ladder, you know, back to heaven. You know, and in Ragnarok, it talks about this as well. You know, in Ragnarok, it talks about this as well. You know, and these are, I think there's 10 rungs on the ladder, basically. And these are like the dimensions. You know, these are the dimensions. Each dimension, you know, inverting, flipping, you know, going up, you know. And we need that negativity because that's how it works. It is, you'll never get rid of duality. Ever. Ever. Not in a physical state, at least. You may in an ethereal state, yes. I'm sure you could because everything is unified in one. But in this current state, no. You know, it's how we actually exist. It's that resistance that actually allows us to physically exist. We'll never get rid of it. So all these new age fucks that tell you you will, they're full of shit. They don't understand how it actually works. They're just giving you ideas, you know, from their mind, you know, and in the Bible talks about it, right? They would strong delusion, right? That they would choose delusions from their own mind over, you know, sound doctrine, right? And, you know, what it's actually saying when it says that, it's like, you know, and it says they have the book of wisdom in front of them, right? And they wouldn't use it. You know, the great book would be in front of them and they wouldn't use it. You know, this is the Akashic record, you know, this is all of the ancient texts. We have it. These ancient cultures knew that we were going to take a dip in consciousness, that we were on our way down. And there's so many different prophecies and things of that nature that talk about this as well, right? That we would come back to a golden age. Matter of fact, you know, it's described as yugas as well, right? Yugas, you know. And these are different times of darkened consciousness, and their highs and their lulls in consciousness, you know, according to where we are around the central sun, right? You know, within our soul system and how we are traveling, you know, which is the precession of the equinox, right? The 12 is a zodiacal wheel, okay? And each one representing different elements, representing masculine, feminine, because those are the 7 hermetic principles, and you cannot break those. You know, gender, polarity, all of these things. And I don't care what your fucking opinion is on gender. I'm talking about hermetics. I don't give a fuck about anything else. But anyways, you know, so we have these ages, right? And then we go into Aries, which is masculine, right? So we go from this time, and think about it too, with the Egyptians and all of this shit. What did they do? Everything was like on copper and shit like that. You notice that? Because it's that Venusian, right? Venus, you know? They're trying to conduct or use things as a conduit for the energy that they were harnessing at that particular time. You know, and then when they go to the Aryan age, right? Aries of the East, right? That's the fire. That's the magic. That's Moses dropping the staff or the rod. And remember, the rod represents kingship. It also represents your spine, right? The Kundalini, right? Which is, you know, how you travel, you know, up the chakras, you know, activate the sacred secretion, right? Or the anointing, right? Which is the third eye or the pineal, okay? Which is the magnetic pole of your body. It's like the spiritual antenna of your body. It's the third temple, guys. It's the third temple. And I've talked about this on the channel too, right? When they talk about destruction comes from the east. And then, right, when you see the abomination of desolation standing in the place it ought not to be, right? Flee to the hills of Judea and shit like that. And these different prophecies, what I believe they were actually talking about. And I can't speak about it on the public platform. But let's just say, you know, C19, right? Devok 91 talks about being possessed by an evil spirit, right? So think about that. Just saying, you know, nobody even straight over their fucking head when that shit was taking place. You know, nobody was catching on. I mean, there were a few, but anyways. So we go from that masculine age, and then you see God take on a new, archetype, right? Go from a feminine age, and God is, it's feminine, right? It's about fertility and sex and just all of these things, right? They're using copper, you know, all of this, okay? Venus is that, you know, kind of like, you know, it's knowledge, it's the divine feminine. It, you know, it was a beautiful time for them, you know? Everybody unified. And then you hear like the tale of like Atlantis, where they have this darkness that comes in, right? This dark magic that comes in causes division, you know. And in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, he talks about, you know, on the island of Undal, right? And if we got into that, we could go way deep in that rabbit hole, you know, of and Gilgamesh and all of that, right? With Thoth and shit. All of this shit connects, guys. I swear to you, every last bit of it. But the island of Undal, and how the Temple of Light sank under the water. Ooh, what? You know, they're talking about the shift into another age, the age of Pisces, right? The Piscean age, which is the 2 fish, right? That's when duality began, you know? But Moshe, or Akhenaten, and like I said, the Colburn Bible, written on brass, pre-Diluvian, tells a different perspective of the book of Exodus. It has the 3 chapters on the destroyer, right? It talks about in the days of the destroyer, you know, what would happen, you know, sons would be wayward and all of this shit. That it's been here in the past and that it returns again. Everybody hit that thumbs up for me, please. Share this link, subscribe, and click all on the notifications bell. Just going to put that out there for everybody watching. Donate, support if you like what I'm doing. You want to help me out. So join us on Patreon for exclusive content, free merch for all those who join, 25 and over, packages. So, you know, you have this, you know, taking place, guys, and what we see, and they talk about that, you know, the division because of this dark magic and all that, and then we see a God emerge like the Yahweh God, right? The Yahweh God. And I want you to kind of think also, those two brothers concepts, see, everything happens on every dimensional level or aspect within the reality. It's always micro, macro. That's where you get like the Fibonacci sequence and all of that. It's like this mirrored effect. This one, the golden ratio or whatever is just infinitely repeating itself, you know, into every mirrored aspect of reality. You know, whether that's on a collective level, right? Collectively, collective consciously, you know, in the physical world, geographically, you know, within our anatomy. I mean, all of it, in our chakras, everything, the solar system, everything has mimicked this pattern from the smallest scale to the largest scale, which is God. That's the God pattern, right? And that's why there's nothing new under the sun. And that's why everything operates in cycles or circles or spheres. These are the heavenly spheres, right? They operate in circles, right? Nothing new under the sun. It just happens. It's on repeat. You know, all of it is on repeat. And the zodiac is a circle, right? 12 months of the year, 12 signs of the zodiac, right? 7 days of the week, 7 chakras, 7 colors of the rainbow. You know, I could go on and on. 7 main planets, you know, on and on and on how this works. You know, and you guys will know about sacred numbers of 369 or, you know, 235, right? 235 is another one. A lot of people don't know that as much, but it is. These are also sacred numbers, you know. And that's where people come up with things like E equals MC squared and all this. And I was talking to my girlfriend about that the other day, about the whole E equals MC squared. And that actually these different shapes, right? The polygons of reality, everything correlates to these shapes as well. See, the angles, or angels, right? Angles are what creates the physical reality, right? So everything, you know, and these circles actually encapsulate all of these angles, and they touch in on themselves. I gave you the website earlier to go check that out if you want to see AI kind of put all that together. It's amazing, you know. And that's where people like Terrence Howard, Walter Russell, and all this, you know, periodic table that goes from the alpha to the omega, right? On the alpha and the omega, right? It's from the lightest to the heaviest, and how everything integrates and, you know, goes in together, right? Everything operating in these circles or cycles, you know. And it's amazing to kind of think of, you know, when we really, really look deep into these things and we go into this masculine age, then we go from a feminine to a masculine, okay? So we have one parent, the mom, right, age of Taurus, another parent, you know, Aries or Marduk, right, the ram, the masculine, and then what do we get? What do we get? The destroyer, he's a fire god, right? The destroyer, he kills everything with fucking fire. Fire is enlightenment. It's magic. It's the Holy Spirit. You know, when you see this masculine take place, and how is God? He's an angry, wrathful, vengeful God, right? And he'll beat your ass because he is a masculine, patriarchal God, and not because the patriarchy's bad, you fucking weirdos. Everything is necessary. Everything. Because that's the age we were in, and that's what we needed in order to balance us out at that particular time. We had to master each aspect of ourself in order to become what we are becoming. We're still in the process. We are a work in progress still. They're still dropping ingredients in us as we go around the zodiac. Every age, these 2,600 year ages, and are they Shars, like according to Nibiru, right? I think they said they were 3,600, but right? Strange, huh? Some people believe 4,300. Are they Baktums, like the Mayans? These long counts, right? And I want you to think about the different cycles too. 2,600 years, 3,600 years, 6,500 years, 12,500 years, 24,000 years, right? And it goes on and on and on and on and on. These cycles after cycles after cycles. We've probably been around for millions of fucking years. For real. For real. And we probably done came up and down the ladder of consciousness so many times, you know? And it's like we're here playing a game. We are taking on a character and a narrative here to have the experience or the illusion of individuality. It's like a fucking virtual reality, guys. Literally. See what it's like to be a person, which is a persona. It's a mask. To see what it's like to wear a mask. How about that? You know, and it's your logos, right? Your logos, right? That you're walking around with. Your individual, unique algorithm of who you are. And we talk about this all the time too, like at least on this channel we do, how a name, right? A name is an affirmation, right? Right? It's like an affirmation. You're speaking something into the, you know, into the ethers, your name. According to the Jewish people, right, they won't use particular names from the Bible. Like for girls, they won't use the name Rachel because it's shitty. She had a terrible time in the Bible. They say that when you have a grandfather or something, they get sick, right? You don't name your son after him because he'll get sick too. Because every name carries energy, right? It carries fucking energy, right? Every name has meaning, right? Like my name, John, Jonathan, right? Gift from God, gift of God. Or to be keen, to be sharp with your word in your life, to be brave, to be courageous, right? John, brave, courageous, whatever, right? All of these things. Isn't it weird? My first and last name mean the same thing, right? My middle name, Wayne, it means way, right? The way, right? The way. Everything's got something to do with it. And how about that? I speak, right? To be sharp with one's word and one's life, right? To be brave, right? How about that? You know, I'm not saying I'm brave, but I'm just saying, you know, I'm a speaker. You look at the astrology, and I'm just giving you I know you don't give a fuck about my name, my numerology, or astrology, but I'm just giving you an example of how this is the individual algorithm of each one of us, right? I'm born on the 33rd parallel. In numerology, I am a master number. I'm a 33-6, right? A 33, right? Which is influence, right? It's a master teacher, to be precise. Master teacher and healer. And guess what I do? Is that a coincidence? Right? And what is it called? The divine whatever. I am a role model hermit. Right? Hermes, also the teacher. Right? Astrology, I'm a Virgo. Hermit, also the teacher. Right? The mystic of the zodiac. Strange? Coincidence? I think not. I think not. You know? I think not. And people can say what they want, you know, about that stuff, but these are what makes us up. This is how we carry these energies about us. That is the algorithm of who we are. All of these ingredients to go and make up the unique individual, right? And this is according to my genetic code, the DNA. Remember, this is the blueprint. I talked about this, the fingerprints, the top of your head, all these different individual parts of your body, right? That correlate to your, your electromagnetic signature, your aura, or your DNA. They're all one and the same. That's why my soul can't jump into your body. Because it's unique. It's unique. And how does it work? It's all according to when we were conceived and when we were birthed, born, right? What was in the sky in that particular time? Why would it matter what was in the sky? Because those were the most prominent energies feeding in, to the firmament or the arc, right? Being separated through that prism, projecting down here to create us. That's why. And you can say, it's all an illusion, John. Yes and no. I mean, yes and no. Perception is reality, but, there is rules to the reality. There's laws. And they can't be broken or bent. That's why when we talk about the elites and all this shit, A lot of people, you know, they first off, it's heavily misunderstood. And I do want to ask all the people, there's 55 people in the chat, please hit thumbs up for me, all 55 of you, you know, and subscribe. Click all on the notifications bell. And if you would like to, please share the link. Also, share it for me, wherever, you know, your social medias and your YouTube channels and all that. And please consider donating, supporting to the channel also. We're viewer powered. They've demonetized me on everything. So PayPal, Cash App, Facebook Messenger, and join us for private content. And everybody, it's Patreon. So all the links are in the description. But every one of us, we have this individual, unique algorithm that makes us up, and it's according to how everything was aligned when we were placed here, you know. And you can see that the matrix operates in this way as well. And think about matrix, what it actually means. You want to know what it actually means in Hebrew? It means womb. 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 We're being birthed. You know, and you know what I like to think? This is my airy-fairy fucking, you know, hypothesis of what I actually would probably like it to be. You know, I do believe we are all God, you know, not individually, but collectively, you know. And we derive from that infinite awareness, and we're all eyes, if you will, on that universal organism, or nodes on that universal organism. I've talked about this, you know. We all have our individual perspective or point of view. But I would like to think that each one of us are being born or birthed into this process of awareness, or, you know, consciousness, or ascension, whatever you would like to call it, to where we will be able to conceive of our own universe, our own, you know, reality, to be a God of our own existence, like the God we understand, you know. Maybe we ascend back to the stars, and we become a star. You know, there's a lot of different ways we could think about this. You know, when you hear about the concepts of 144,000, all of this, and a lot of people believe that these are fragments of souls and what it takes to make up one star. You know, you can take that, and there's so many other things with the 144. We won't get into tonight, another day, but we'll talk about it. And then you see the whole concept, too, of like the feminine, like I said, with the Venusian age, with Taurian and all of that, right? Then it became the masculine with Aries and the ram and the fire. You know, and I told you, when Moshe, Akhenaten threw down that staff, which the staff represents the spine, it represents kingship, rulership, the Kundalini. When he threw it down, and think about throwing it down, he descended, right? He descended from that divine feminine to that masculine, which is the physical, right? To the mind. He descended from the spirit to the mind. And when he did so, it turned into a serpent, right? A snake, right? A serpent. We can think of this a few different, you know, ways. Serpent being like seraph or seraphim, right? Which is angelic being. They're fire beings, right? Which would represent, you know, the spirit as well, right? Being embodied with that Holy Spirit, or, you know. We could also look at it as Nagas, which is very prominent in all different sorts of mythologies, right? And the Nagas, a lot of time they're akin to warrior gods, but they're also akin to serpent gods too. So, right? With the Nagas and the Nags. You know, isn't it interesting, the Gnostic text, and Nag Hammadi, right? How about that? Just, you know, coincidence? Who knows? You know, and remember, when we look at the Enki and Enlil, there were two brothers. That first brother representing like the Enki, which is, you know, first off, you know, Ki, right? And the Ka and the Ba, right? In Egypt, the big soul and the little soul. And this is what I think we're kind of like seeing. And he went from Ea, Lord of the Earth, to Enki, Lord of the Water, right? And he is akin to like a Lucifer, a Jesus, right? The Thoth, whatever, right? And he was the older brother, but he didn't get to rule, right? His younger brother, Enlil, which is the Lord Commander of the earth, right? Lord, Archon, ruler, controller, right? Of the earth, right? The physical. He was the one who actually was in charge. And if we think about that, you know, the second brother was actually, I think, the physical body, right? Which is the masculine, the male part of this combination. The divine feminine, you know, being, or once again, we could take it to another version of that, because see, it all, like I said, there's every dimensional aspect that we look at this, we'll see the same principles play out and be able to be explained. And I've tried to teach it this way for years. And people who have like really, really watched me for a long time, you know, they get it. You know, I'll try to teach it in a version of ways, a whole different variation, teach you every layer. That way, eventually, you'll stop separating the layers and you'll see it all as one. You know, so instead of like it being abstract, you know, with that distortion and those angles and that separation, you start to see it unified, circular, spherical, right? And everything within one, you know, universality, you know. But anyways, the younger brother, right, representing that masculine, it's like the physical and it's like the mind, you know. So it's like the spirit is actually being ruled by the mind in the world, but it's actually the spirit that gives place to the mind, you know, in the spiritual world, you know, in the spiritual realm. So how about that, right? You know, and then the sun, which would be Marduk, right, which comes from Enki, that's his son, right? He ascends, right, Marduk, to the heavens, you know, to the throne. That's like your Christ concept, right? That anointing, making the Kundalini rise, you know? Hemispheric synchronization or hypnagogic dream state, right? The opening of the third eye or the pineal, the activation of the third eye. It's making those two hemispheres, the two become one, right? It's making the two become one. If thine eye be single, then thy whole body be filled with light. Right? There you get it. You see what I'm saying now? That's why everything within the reality, you know, and you'll see this like with 1111. And this is like a big concept, especially in like, you know, spiritual communities and shit like that when they talk about awakening these different principles. But 1111, you know, in numerology, if we take the word black, you know, and give it the numerological code, it's 11, and then white is 11. So 1111, that's why you see the Masonic checkerboard floor, right? We are operating on binary code as well within our brains, right? Fight or flight and all of that and everything we see. And that's where we get back into like kind of like the beginning, you know, things kind of starting to come full circle, you know, seeing that algorithmic, you know, undertone to everything. You know, everything being bipolar, having two poles, right? Positive, negative. And this goes back to, you know, like the tale of Nibiru. Remember, Nibiru, we talked about Jupiter, right? Jupiter, Marduk, right? Different names for this, right? And it's Jupiter. But, you know, and Marduk, he defeats Nibiru. He overcomes Nibiru, right? Or through, yeah, or Tiamat, excuse me, to save Nibiru. Okay, so this is what happens, and Tiamat is one of the dragons, or serpents, if you will. So take it back to Moses dropping that staff. Serpent devouring its own tail. What is that? It's the Ouroboros, right? So when we drop down into the physical with our conscious self, right, we began the infinite loop of time. The infinite dance, right? Which you think about the Hopi prophecies, right? And the two brothers, right? Pagan Hoya and Palangata Hoya, right? They come in and what do? The Kachinas dance, the red and the blue Kachina. Woo-hoo-hoo. You starting to see now? It's the dance, right? Solar, lunar, red, blue, black, white, up, down, left, right. These are the poles. You know, in this polarity shift, like we were talking about. And these two poles also represent the two hemispheres of the brain. You know, And through the gateway process, the hemispheric synchronization, we know that you can actually use sound, right? Now think about every ritual from indigenous people to all of this, right? And how they would beat drums and home, right? All of these different things, right? It was to activate the, to get those hemispheres, in synchronization, right? To activate the third eye, to raise your vibration, But those two brothers, like I was saying, and, all of it, Pog and Hoya, Palanga Hoya, which red and blue Kachina, and remember the red's the purifier. Why? Because it's fire, masculine, right? Just keep going, right? It's the tool that acts as the catalyst to actually, purify your essence and allow you to grow, because we have the veil of forgetfulness, right? And the veil of forgetfulness is just us under this delusion of thinking that we're actually separated, right? We forget where we come from. We forget we're all one. We forget, right? So we're remembering, meaning we're putting the body, the members, right? Putting the body back together. This is the collective body, or the body of Christ, right? The Christos, right? Which means the anointing, right? That goes back into that sacred secretion and everything, micro, macro. That's why when we look at the earth, what it actually looks like to me is a collective third eye, collective third eye. And the electromagnetic field, or this firmament, if you will, right, is the aura of all of humanity, of the earth itself. And that's why, the 7.83 or whatever hertz, is synonymous with the vibration of love. God is love. You can just, it's like this endless rabbit hole of knowledge and expounding upon things and taking you to places that a lot of people don't dare to go. They don't even dare to imagine that it could be this way. That it could all be this fascinating, this grand of a plan, this amazing, this powerful, and that you're that fucking powerful, that you're that fucking special. And when they talk about us or being like the center of creation, it's true, because if this concept is true, if my theory is true, there's nothing else but us. There is no reality without us. There is no space without us. There is no planets without us. We are the observer. But we're observing ourselves. We're looking in a mirror, guys. And think about the story of Narcissus, right? What does he do? He's looking down in a pond. He's looking down, at his own reflection. It's his own reflection. That's what you're doing here. The waters above the firmament and below. You see? Reality is a mirror. That's why when we perceive light, right, through that electromagnetic field, through that prism, right, those light waves go into our eyes, and they hit the back of our eye, and they flip, right, the right way up, because they're upside down when we see it. It's mirrored. The waters above the firmament and below. We are walking, talking, fucking badasses, You think about our telomeres, and it looks like somebody has actually altered our telomeres, whether that was us or somebody else, right? And how that's how long we're able to live, and you see like the older cycles and shit like that, how they were living 800 years, and then like the King's List, 30,000 years. Why were they living so long? I just want to ask you that. Just want to give you a food for thought. I like that. Yeah, it is. Food for thought, right? So I want you to kind of think, like, when we're thinking of the concepts of why these King's Lists, why they last so long. There's 60 people in the chat. Hit the thumbs up for me. Why did they last so long in these King's Lists, these Sumerian King's Lists, and all of this, right? Could it possibly be if we went back in these cycles? And this is just a theory. We now have the telomeres that have been clipped, right? So we can remember, God, after the Tower of Babel, right? Babel, right? Babel, right? To speak, right? Babel, we made this tower, right? A tower which takes us, it ascends us, right? to the top of the firmament, right? So we were ascending in consciousness to the top. We went up Jacob's ladder, right, and rebelled against God, meaning we were in opposition polarity-wise, right? Probably in a physical form or, whatever, right? And you can take this to Atlantis and them doing the dark magic, everything. Anyways, what happens? Right? They knock that fucking tower down and they confuse the language. Right? And we're scattered all across the earth. Confusing the language, meaning we were once unified, right? And in these older cycles, like I said, right? The Taurian and Venusian, Divine Feminine, Ishtar, Inanna, right? Everybody unified, one consciousness, right? Using copper and pyramids, all these different things to amplify energy and move things, that couldn't even possibly be moved, right? These were, titans, in essence, or Olympians, or whatever, right? These were the gods, right? Then you had these deities or demigods in the next age, which was the age of fire, right? And this is us finally going down into the masculine or the mind, right? And the mind and the physical and all that. And this is like the beginning of the fall, but we're still able to access magic, right? And we finally have created the loop with positive and negative, with the feminine of the first age, the masculine of the second age. Now it's made the loop. And those are the two dragons or the two serpents. And like I said, in the mythos of the Cthulhu mythos and the Necronomicon, or, when we look at the Anunnaki, right? We had these two dragons, right? These two serpents, the red and the blue, okay? One of them, we have Nibiru or Cthulhu or whatever you want to call it, right? This masculine serpent, this masculine dragon, this red dragon. The other one, the feminine, which is Tiamat, right? Tiamat, what happens? Tiamat was devouring everything. Devouring everything. Think about it. Do you get it? Divine feminine, right? Everything was connected, unified as one, devouring everything. Consumed all, it consumed all. One unifying principle or spirit. No separation. This would even be in your Garden of Eden, I guess, right? Before the Great Fall. And if we look at the first book of Adam and Eve, when it talks about the angels or the watchers, right? What did they do when they first beheld Adam, right? Which Adam, right? In Adam, or the Atma, right? Man. What did they do when they first beheld him? They fell to their fucking faces and they worshipped him. They thought he was God. Whew. Why? Why? Because he was. Because he was. The closest thing we could probably get to it. And this would probably be your Yaldabaoth as well. Think about it. Right? The lion-headed serpent. The lion-headed serpent, Yaldabaoth in the Gnostic text. Which Pistis Sophia from the 13th Aeon, 13, in 13, a lot of people believe represents Ophiuchus, which Ophiuchus has a serpent wrapped around him. He's a man. He has control of the serpent in the higher aspect. And the lower aspect is wrapped around him, right? Strangling him. Interesting, is it not? But she looks down, right? She looks down. Pistis Sophia does, right? And that's why she falls, right? She looks down at Yaldabaoth, the lion-headed serpent, right? And she falls from her heavenly estate. And the whole story about, Christ in the first book of Pistis Sophia is him restoring her through his vestment to that, I believe to the 12th or 13th Aeon again, But, it all starts to make sense, that divine feminine aspect, that Holy Spirit, being pulled down by that negative or that masculine, right? So that's when you see electricity and magnetism finally come together, right? And what we, perceive as our reality now. That was the joining of the red and the blue, and that's why you see when they talk about, secret societies and initiations and rituals and, different versions of enlightenment, you'll hear about purple being the color. Purple, right? They'll describe scarlet or purple, because this is the joining of the two. Remember, we're making the two become one, right? We're making the two become one, So we're joining the masculine and the feminine. We're joining the two hemispheres of the brain, right? The left and right. We're joining the light and the dark, all of it, right? That's why the narrow gate, is the way to go, right? It's the narrow gate. If you find it, it's between the two, right? It's not easy, man. It's not easy, and most people will never understand this shit, I mean, they will eventually, but not in our present day. Most people don't care, is what I should say. Not that they never will. We do see a sort of like 100th monkey syndrome thing happening all across the globe right now, where people are now becoming far more aware of consciousness and metaphysics and, spirit and all of these things, and, the law of attraction and manifestation and, all of it. Astrology, we see this, major kind of like renaissance when it comes to these things, right? And I believe we see this, because we are all connected, right? Like that 100th monkey. Like once one monkey learns it, the other monkeys pick it up because we're consciously connected on the ether net, right? Through the ether of the consciousness. Yin and yang. Absolutely. Yeah. See, and here's the thing, too. Hey, John, or Wild Man and John, thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody in the chat and shit, too. Make sure to hit that thumbs up if you're watching this, guys. But see, what you're actually seeing, though, is us finally, and they say in the Bible, in the last days, right, which apocalypse, means revealing, right? Revelation, book of Revelation, the Revelation of John, right? And you remember, John means a gift from God, so the gift from God, so, the gift of the Spirit of revelation, right? Interesting when you truly think about it, right? And the revelation of John, this revealing of the last days, when it's talking about the 7 lampstands and all this shit, it's talking about, the 7 chakras. It's talking about the same things we're talking about now, right? And these things have happened before. They've happened before. We went through these cycles in time, many times before, guys. And when these ages end, at the end of the age, we almost reach like a zenith, we reach like a zenith or a climax in consciousness, to where we get to a very, very high level of consciousness, one would believe. Back before we, descend and fall down again as we go into a new age, which we're building ourselves up, through that new age, learning that new element, learning that new sign and all of that, whether it's, Taurus, Aries, or Pisces. And when we got to Pisces, and think about this too, the age of Horus, according to the Egyptians and all of this, right? Which is, and the son of God, and, okay, all of this, You had Isis first, right? Isis, then Osiris, right? He's the Lord of the dead. Osiris was, right? It's the brother. It's the male. What they do, they chopped him in pieces, his member, right? His member, and then she got pregnant, She got pregnant and had a son, where he was reincarnated. I want you to think about what's actually being told to you here. Everybody's got this fucking idea, and I'm not saying that it hasn't. There is a good chance that there was a physical manifestation of these things that took place as well. I believe that. As above, so below, right? So I do believe that everything that we see happen in the spiritual and the, astrological, right, actually takes place in the physical as well. And Groxt One is a great channel. Actually, Wildman hooked me up with it years ago. The Groxt One, I don't even know if he still does content, man, but what he would actually show is like through the topography, and geography of the land, you could see these, parables and proverbs and shit from the Bible, these biblical tales being played out through the land. And then you see people that show how it plays out, in our secular culture, right? Through our news and all of that, right? How you'll see the similarities, like, with Trump to King Cyrus, Cyrus being the outsider, he become the king of Babylon, and then Babylon fell in the 4th year. And then think about the 4th year that he was in office, right? The 30,000 National Guard troops that were occupying the nation's capital. You can go on and fucking on. He was minted on a gold coin. I mean, right? The abomination that causes desolation, right? You see it in the 3rd temple, right? The 3rd temple. Think about C19 and what it actually did, right? With that graphene, and, how the magnetic properties and the magnetic pole of your body. And right, this magnetic pole of your body is your 3rd eye, which is the 3rd temple. People don't think it maybe the mark of the beast even, because you couldn't buy or sell without the fucking shit, right? So I'm just saying, and you could even go on and on again, and I believe this happens every time and time, and there's physical manifestations too, right, of what we think of like the Antichrist, right, takes a fatal wound to the head and lives, right, he got shot in the ear, right, keep going, right, Nebuchadnezzar, he was chopped down, right, and then he comes back, right, he had to be humbled, right, King Nebuchadnezzar, these are just all different, what we see, in the 70 years of Israel, and the prophecy of Daniel, and the iron mixed with the miry clay, which is transhumanism. The miry clay is, the physical body, iron, technology, right, metal, Saturn, Satan, all of it, guys, it's like so on and so forth. It keeps continuing, and we see it. There's nothing new under the sun. The cycles are repetitious, and they continue, and we just see different versions and variations of them because they have different spins whenever they're introduced with different energies throughout the zodiacal wheel, which is amplifying them through the sun. The sun is like, God's eye looking at us, right? Pure awareness. Pure awareness. That's why you see people that practice and do mudras at specific times when the sun is in specific positions, and at certain times of the day, they say the sun gives off Christ energy. Harmful energy at other times. And what does radiation, which is given off by the sun, have the ability to do? To mutate DNA, right? Every time that one of these cycles ends and you see these mass extinction events and cataclysms, what happens? All these new species emerge, right? But they're all mutated. They're all slightly different. Whether it's, man from Neanderthal to Chrono-Magnus, or, from fucking whatever other animal, and how they've evolved and changed and shit like that, So that's what's happening right now. And these energies, they're actually just light, right? Ultraviolet and infrared. And these are, get back into the whole dark star thing, right? The infrared light spectrum, right? And then ultraviolet coming from the sun of light, And there were famous scientists back in the 60s that actually disappeared, but, that talked about our moon actually being plasmatic, And that what we actually see, and that the moon having the ability, it almost acts as like a parabolic dish, according to, certain schools of thought, right? Especially according to the Saturn moon matrix, that it acts as this parabolic dish with the ability to harness the awareness of the sun, right, and give it to us in small doses. That way we're not overwhelmed about it, because when you do these mudras and things of that nature with the sun, it's what it's doing is giving you information. The sun is operating in information. So you have your Ka and your Va, your big soul and your little soul, right? So your big soul is your soul of light, and then your Ba, your little soul, what it actually does is acts as like a storage unit. That's what your shadow is. It's storing that information. You're receiving all the information, with the big soul, right? It's what's being developed, And I've done videos on this. It talks about, what is it called? But these are different types or different energies, the X energy and all this stuff that comes from the sun. I've talked about this. You guys have to go back and watch it. But, And what we actually see is like all this all this information being stored in like the lower half, or the lesser, or the lower nature. That way it can be processed. And you ever seen something where it's like you get a download? We're getting downloads from the sun. We're pulling up, awareness, and you want to ask yourself why they do chemtrails, right? Chemtrails. And if you believe in chemtrails or not, but nanoparticulates, and what do nanoparticulates have the ability to do? To bend and refract light. See what I'm saying? So they're refracting it back out into space, not allowing it through. Which that's that awareness trying to penetrate, right? And that radiation trying to transmute or transfigure. When we see him, we will be like him, right? We will be transfigured. Okay? And this is from the Bible. So it's like, whether you, if you're a Christian or whatever, you think I'm just, an occult piece of shit, I'm giving you, your book too. Not just, it's all books. And these books were written down because when that cycle ended, what they were actually trying to do was preserve this knowledge. Because they understood it, And the same thing when we see the hieroglyphs and all of these things, on the pyramids and all of that, guys. They were trying to show us how it all worked. That's exactly what they were trying to do. They didn't want us to be able to lose what we had. Lose that advancement. Lose that evolution, spiritual evolution that we had accomplished, or that conscious evolution that we had. So, and I want you to understand too how symbols are so fucking powerful. And that's why you see in advertising, in the occult, right? Different forms of witchcraft, spell work, you see sigils, right? Or symbols. And what they do is represent an energy, right? A symbol is an energetic representation, of like of an archetype of energy, right? So it's like a symbol like the all-seeing eye, the all-seeing eye, or other symbols, the pentagram, right? What they do is they represent this energy that cannot be encompassed by a word, right? Our words are forms of division, right? So words are sounds that we utter, these guttural sounds or vibrations, right? That are according or in alignment with these particular expressions or symbols, right? O, U, A, E, right? All these things, And we're trying to utter these to try and put, harmonize, something that can be expressed. And isn't that amazing how we can, all these different facets that we're able to actually express spirit or energy, right? Whether it's through sound, light, or any of these things. It's just beautiful how we're able to do these things, and how we have been created or engineered to be able to do this with just such, impeccable capability. So, you see a symbol, and what it does is actually encompass this energetic archetype that can't be expressed through just a simple word, right? So the symbol embodies that entire energy, right? So when you see the symbol, and this is what's cool about it, and this is why sigils are so powerful, and symbols, and Sabian symbols, according to astrology, right? The decans and all of that, right, are so powerful, is because whether or not you even know what the symbol means, and this is the coolest part, whether or not you even know what the symbol is or what the symbol means, whether or not you understand it, whether you even consciously see it. So it can be in your television, which is, a lot of people talk about, secret symbolism and shit like that in advertising and TV, and, how you'll see the hand gestures and, all this shit, right, by celebrities and politicians and all this. And I'm telling you why, right? And I'll give you a couple reasons why. For one, that symbol, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you understand it or not, whether you're aware of it or whether you understand it or not, your mind, through your eyes, is still picking up the image, right? So the image is still imprinting on you. It still carries that energetic frequency to it. And your brain, your mind is connecting with that symbol. So you're connecting consciously with that energetic frequency, right? If you see that enough, you know what I mean? You're kind of getting on that wavelength of that energetic frequency. You're connecting to that higher state of consciousness. So when we talk about a hidden hand, right, that's why the hidden hand operates the way that it does, right? The hidden hand, in essence, is pushing the collective consciousness to you know, enlightenment and that new world order, which is the one world system or one world government, one world religion, one world God, right? All of it. And the reason being, right, is because everything, you know, is one, right? That's that universalism, right? Where everything is one. Everything is connected. You know, there is no division. It's only the illusion of division. There is no good or evil, right? It's only just different polarities. So good and evil are two different polarities of the same thing, right? Hot and cold. You can't tell me where hot ends and cold begins, right? Light and dark. Like you see what I'm saying? These are all the bipoles, you know, the bipolarity of the fucking reality, right? That and it's amazing when you think about it. I mean, if we really truly think about it, it's amazing, you know, and how all of this is expressed, you know, through shapes and colors, and everything orients towards the other, and everything connects towards the other, and everything operates on frequency, you know. And it's like, you know, how powerful is this to even be able to have a taste of this knowledge? You know, so when you're picking up these signals with your eyes, you're connecting to them. You know, and whether it's, you know, pedophilia and pizza and whatever the fuck else, right? Or, you know, it's an all-seeing eye and, you know, enlightenment or whatever, you know. Your brain is, you know, brain waves are now operating in accordance with that signal, you know. So this is why it's powerful. So then when you create sigils, you know, for things that you want to accomplish or create, right? Whether you know, write your name and your girlfriend's name and make a fucking, or initials, and make a sigil out of it for a spell that you're doing, it represents something, right? The symbol, you know, there's so much more of that spell you made, right? With your, say you made a love spell or a, you know, binding yourself with your girlfriend or something. You guys do it together. You make, you know, a whole pact together with things that you're going to do in your spiritual contract or agreement, right? And it's a spiritual marriage. And by doing that, you know, you've got all this written down, and then you have the sigil to represent it, which is your initials and all these things, all of that into one, right? And then that sigil encompasses all of the agreement. It encompasses what color candles you use and what colors you're trying to invoke, because we're not. And it's hard to say because there's two us's, right? There's the two yous, right? And you guys, I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with the concept of the two yous, right? The left and right hemisphere of the brain, right? The left being the masculine, right? Hemisphere, and the one that allows us to have speech and all this, and then the right being the feminine. That's like your all-knowing, you know, part of yourself, right? That creative, intuitive, and then the logic is on the left, right? And they control the polar opposite sides of the body. You know, but we are not, so we have one aspect of us, the mask part of us, right? The persona of us, right? Which means a mask or ego or logos, right? It is the witness. Right? It's the witness. It's actively observing everything, you know. But the feminine aspect of us, you know, it isn't just idle. It's what's actively imposing our will upon, you know, the palette or blank canvas of reality. And we do that through color. We do that through shapes and expressions and symbols and words and all of these things. They're all just different variations of the same thing and different ways for us to express energy and frequency. Because we are electromagnetic beings. We are conduits, right? That's why now they put fucking rubber on the soles of your shoes, right? Think about it. We're supposed to connect to the earth. You know, we discharge on the bottoms of our feet, the bottoms of our hands, our knees, our elbows, and our forehead. So I've said this has been a long time. Some guys may remember this. Some ladies may remember this. You know, in Mecca, you know, when Islam, Muslims, they are down on the ground, right? And they put their head on the ground, right? Elbows, hands down, knees, feet down, right? And they're praying. Right? The reason being, those are discharge points for electromagnetic energy. Right? As they go around the black cube, right? Like the rings of Saturn. You know? And that black cube representing the mind as well, right? You know? And like I said, you know, Christ, he was crucified on the cross, right? The cross representing the physical, and the five senses, the pentagram body, right? And you know, the cross is the cube broken open, right? So they broke out of the box, you know, the prison of the mind. The prison of the mind, the illusion, you know. He was born again. And remember, matrix means a womb. He was born again. Born again. New creature in Christ. New creature in the anointing. You know? And that's why, you know, and I've talked about this in the past as well, you know, the evil eye and things like that. How we can put bad juju on somebody simply by, you know, having shit thoughts of someone, talking shit about somebody. That's why the tongue has a power of, you know, life and death in it, you know, blessings and curses. That's why the Bible says, you know, to cut it out of your fucking mouth. You know, you're better off. Because you're uttering things, uttering vibrations. These vibrations, you know, they have archetypes, right? They correlate to certain things. You know, you're driving your vessel into, you're always driving. Right? That's why it's a space ship, right? The Merkaba, right? All of these things. The heavenly host, right? They operate on the, you know, the seas, and it's all maritime law and shit like that. The dock tour, right? On the soles of your feet when you're born. And, you know, oh Lord, you know. You keep thinking about it, it's like, wow, we are literally sailing. We're sailing the seas right now of the heavens, right? The ether. You know? We're sailing those seas right now, navigating that right now. And it's manifesting into our physical vessel. You know, so we're deciding which direction in life we go through this, you know, and the mind is the womb of the masculine, right? That's why they say men's womb is in their mind. They don't mean actual physical men. It means the masculine. You know, it's got a womb too. It's your third eye. You know? And you gotta love these things because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, and these are the mysteries. You know, you won't hear a lot of this on a lot of any places, just to be honest, not this cohesive and this connected, and this big picture. You know, I'm not bragging or anything like that or saying I know it all. You know, I know nothing. You know, knowing nothing is the beginning of wisdom, honestly, because it's like, damn, nobody knows. You know, we can only go with what we have. You know, and like I said, those symbols, that symbolism, you know, that connection to that. That's why in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, right? Thoth, what does he say when you read those books, right? And think about it, emerald, right? Green, you know, and these correlations to the chakras, the days of the week, the planets they're connected to, just saying, which also have minerals, metals, because everything operates at every dimensional level of space and time. That's fact. It's different manifestations of the same fucking energy and archetypes at different levels. You know. That's why your 7 chakras, right? Your 7 lampstands, right? They're representative of the solar system. You know. The solar system. But then you. Your brain is representative of the universe. You know. because we are the universal organism. And like I said, we are, we have that seraphim, that seraphic fire, serpent aspect of us, right? And you hear about serpent and mammal brain and all that shit like that. These are the two aspects. And think about our DNA. It has every plant and every animal within the system, every molecule, everything. We are that badass. When you think about all of it, you see cherubim too, how they're covered with eyes, and that's, to me, seraphim, cherubim, which, Lucifer or Satan, he was a cherubim and a seraphim, right? Think about it. Lucifer, the intellect, right? The fallen angel, the angel of music or sound, right? When we're born into sin, if you look at like I believe it's ancient Germanic, it's, born into sound or sin. Sin means sound, like all of these different concepts, guys. I'm trying to tell you, you can go on and on and on, and then the age of Horus, or the age of the sun, right? Christ, right? The sun being born. We had the feminine, Taurus, Venus, Venusian age, the divine feminine. Then the masculine, Yahweh, right? Marduk, Aries, right? Then the sun, the two fish, the Pisces, the water. Water holds memory. The planet is made of 80% water. We're made of 80% water. Remember, in the Nag Hammadi, right? Or the reality of the rulers. Hypostasis of the Archons. Separated the waters above the firmament from the waters below. Right? When you speak to water, what happens? When you put your intent into water, what happens? You ever seen the experiments and shit on TikTok? Or Dr. Miyamoto, when he does them? Speaking positive things to snowflakes, and what do they become? They become beautiful and symmetrical when they're flash frozen, put under a microscope. When you say shitty things to them, what do they become? Ugly and abstract, and same thing's taking place. Or the rice experiments, where they talk shit to rice for 30 days and then talk good to it as it sits in water. What happens? The bad rice, where they talk bad, it rots, stagnates. Think about, the inner dialogue you have within your own mind. Think about what you say to yourself, how you speak, right? From the mouth, the heart speaks. From the mouth, the heart speaks. So what are you putting onto others, with your mind, with your mouth, with your actions? And don't say, I didn't do it intentionally, I talk about this all the time. The road to hell is paved with good intention. And if we have awareness of something, if we know something hurts another person, if we know something, does harm, and that's the rule, do no harm, right? Then we are responsible. That's part of our karma. Right? Our karmic debt, right? Which is the balancing act, right? Of positive, negative within this world, this reality. You get what you put out. Do unto others. Right? And that's why Christ said the entirety of the law will be fulfilled with these two commandments. Love the Lord thy God with all your heart and soul. Right? And love one another as I have loved you. And I think that's like a mic drop moment right there. Because it's truth. Love is the answer. Love is the key. I'm going to try not to get run over by a fucking city bus here. And if you love the content, you love what I do. Sorry guys, I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. It is a little loud here. I live in the city. If you love the content, you love what I do. If you get something out of this, just everybody, hit the thumbs up if you're in the chat, or you catch us on the flip side. It helps me tremendously. Please comment on the video. That helps me so much too. Comments help with the algorithms. Subscribe, click all on the notifications bell, the backup channel, and donate, guys. If you can donate, help me. I really would appreciate it. Donate, paypal.me, the Best Damn Podcast, Cash App, Best Damn Podcast, Facebook Messenger. Facebook.com, John Keane, Best Damn Podcast. and join us over on Patreon for private content, you know, which I've uploaded all of it directly to Patreon now. It's gotten way better. And you get free merch, hats, coffee mugs, all that shit if you join me over on Patreon, but you have to be at least $25 tier and up, because I pay for the merch myself, actually. You get discounted tarot readings and all that if you join us over on Patreon. You know, and to everybody who does monthly pledge, to everybody who will donate, you know, big ups, big thanks to you guys. I've been demonetized on everywhere. So literally every platform, they've demonetized me. And to everybody that said all, you know, prayers and all of this, you know, I did say this, you know, I've been sick. I've been having health issues. They believe I got bladder cancer. So I'm not speaking that into fruition or anything, but, you know, all the people that, you know, wished me well and just prayed for me, anybody, like, you know, donates and all that shit, man, just thank you. You know, that helps so much, and I'm grateful. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And yeah, this Friday, you know, I got a big procedure coming up, so, you know, show some love and show your support and prayers, and just, you know, shit's, you know, it's scary, dude, for real. It really is. Not, you know, I don't like the doctors. You know, I don't like all of that, you know, because when we have disease, you know, dis-ease, it's distortion, you know, within ourselves. We're out of alignment somewhere, you know. I have 3 beautiful children, a beautiful girlfriend, you know, great family, you know, so great community, so I think it'll be all right. So thank you for the prayers. Thank you for the donations and all your support. Please follow me Instagram, Facebook at Best Damn Podcast, Twitter or X, The Real Best Damn. The backup channel here on YouTube, you can get all like the old classics, the interviews and shit. It's youtube.com, Best Damn Podcast. The main channel, Best Damn Podcast Official on YouTube. TikTok at The Best Damn Podcast. And, you know, I wonder if I'm missing anything. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then, you know, like I said, check out all the other content. Book a personal tarot reading by texting 513-393-2396. It's 513-393-2396. Or email therealbestdampodcast@gmail.com. And if you guys like to reach out, like for booking, you know, anything, you know, those are the contacts as well. Like I said, donate, support, share, comment, subscribe, click the bell. I love you guys. I appreciate everything you do, and I will see you next time. Y'all have an awesome, awesome week. For real. Thank you so much. Thank you, Truth Seeker, John Moran, Nate, Claudette Malespina, Wildman, Tex Brogan, Blue F, Scott Brown, Rhonda Mallory. Yeah, sorry you got timed out, homeboy. You're probably acting a goofball. Sorry. I ain't gonna say your name then. Ape, Colin Pfeiffer, I think it is. Sorry guys, I have a shitty eyes, but Dusty, it's like 313, Dusty YG 313, Mark Travis, Star Goddess 516, Isaiah Gonzalez, Darman, I think is the name, and I Am Music 2, James Ledger, thank you guys, Cameron Willis, Garcia, hell yeah, man, I appreciate all of you guys so much. One Life Man, yeah, thank you. Alright, I think I'll stop there. Dwight K. Schrute and Skira, I think it is. Yeah, we'll leave it there. So, anybody else? Thank you so much. Raymond, Coyote, thank you guys. Y'all are the shit. So, like I said, thumbs up, comment, share the link, subscribe, the bell, donate. Links are all in the description. Love you guys. See you next time. Peace.